Welcome to the Doctors of Change, the podcast for practitioners, doctors, and healers who refuse to quit. This is where we honor the men and women who have walked through burnout, trauma, breakdowns, and breakthroughs, came out stronger on the other side. These are for the doctors who realized the greatest medicine they could ever practice was healing themselves first. Their stories, their lessons, scars, and victories will change you, inspire you, and wake up the leader within you. This is a new era of medicine, and the revolution starts here. Welcome to the Doctors of Change. Welcome to another episode of Doctors of Change and Meet the Experts. I have an amazing guest today that I'm so excited to share with you because I have a personal relationship with Dr. Quinn, and she's changing the game for doctors and finding innovations that support better patient outcomes, and goes back from seeing her open her practice to it evolving personally and professionally, and to supporting doctors on a large scale have solutions that improve patient outcomes. So Dr. Quinn, welcome to the show, Doctors of Change. Tell us a little bit about your journey. You at some point had to leave your conventional way of thinking, operating, and you opened up an integrative practice in Colorado. Tell us about that journey and the decision to switch and how you continue to evolve.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big story, so I'll try to keep it somewhat concise, but I think taking it back to just my personal self, even before medical school. So I was an athlete growing up. I was a gymnast and then a springboard diver in college. And so I think I've always had a deeper connection to my body and my physical being and health as a whole. And so I knew I wanted to be a doctor at the age of 14. And I've never looked back since. I mean, it was very clear to me one day. I was like, I was watching a PBS show. Actually, they were doing eye surgery. And I remember thinking like, I want to do that. And in the moment I knew like I didn't necessarily want to do eye surgery, but I was like, I love science. I love people. I love puzzles. Like that's what I want to do. And that's literally, there was never any other option for me in the world. So in medical school, during medical school, you always, or at least in my medical school, we always had to give talks to our class on our different systems. So on the pulmonary system or cardiovascular system or or like the brain or neurology. And so every single talk that I did in medical school, I always gave the holistic approach. So I talked about acupuncture, or I talked about manipulations. And so I've always been more holistically medicine minded, I think partially with my upbringing, and just partially me as a person having this innate understanding that there are other ways of treatment than Western medicine, but also that like food and exercise and nature are important in our well-being. So it's always just been a part of me. But I did a traditional medical route. I mean, I'm a doctor, a DO, so I went to basically traditional medical school, did a residency in something called physical medicine and rehab, which is the study of anything that makes you move abnormally. So from sports injuries to neurologic conditions, rheumatologic conditions, spinal cord injuries, brain injuries. And that made sense to me because as an athlete, I had a sense of the body and how it moves and how important it is in our health. So that was my residency training. And I only practiced in traditional medicine for 2 years after that. And I practiced in a musculoskeletal pain medical practice. And during that time, people would come to me wanting medications. And I found that I was constantly telling them, about diet and exercise and how that would impact their pain or how they could rehab themselves, not just by taking a pill. And so really like a couple of years into practice, I just thought, gosh, if I'm like reading nutrition books for fun and, talking to people about diet and exercise, like I just didn't feel like that first private practice I was in really fit. Like I was begging people to take care of themselves and people would just come to me for a pill. And it just didn't feel like I was practicing medicine in a way that aligned with what I knew inherently true and inherently possible in the human, condition. And so during those first couple of years of being in practice, I was seeing a good handful of high-level athletes, and they couldn't do like the typical steroid injections or things like that. So I was constantly looking for other resources for them to be able to heal themselves. And there was this one, and stepping back a little bit, I'd already learned about something called regenerative medicine, which is using your body's own platelets and stem cells to help heal itself. And so I kept referring to this one physician to do these regenerative medicine procedures for our higher level athletes. But also if I had patients who wanted just alternative medicine or something different, I started looking up a doc who could help. And it was the same doc who did these regenerative procedures. So one day when I was getting frustrated with the typical kind of Western traditional medical system, I thought I should ask him if he'll hire me. So long story short is he did. It was a bigger kind of process than that. But after about a year of me shadowing him, he hired me. But during the time of me shadowing him, he was at that point, that was almost 20 years ago. He was what used to be called an anti-aging medicine doc. Now it's called a longevity medicine doc. And he mentored me in everything he knew. And when I started shadowing him, I literally, my eyes were wide open. I was like, I could do this for a living. And I literally felt like I was at home in medicine. Like that's how I wanted to treat people. And I just knew like that was it for me. So he hired me to do his regenerative medicine, but he mentored me in everything anti-aging back in the day. And that's kind of the very abbreviated version of how I ended up here with, in addition, about I opened my own business after working with him on and off since that time, about 7 years ago now. And when I opened my own business, I added psychedelics to my practice because sometime in between 20 years ago and 7 years ago, I had my own experience with psychedelics and really personally believe that psychedelics are true root cause healing, and recognized the disconnect that we have in Western medicine and also the extreme connection and necessary connection between the mind and the body. And they're not separate. Our physical being and our mental being and our spiritual being are connected and are one. And if we could integrate them all together, we can really make that true, deep, innate healing and transformation that people are looking for when they come to a physician.
Yeah,
So that's how I'm here.
I call it phase A, B, and C. That's simple. And this is a trend that I see continuing to evolve in this space. And this is what Doctors of Change is built on. Your average conventional doctor, trainer, nutritionist, they've learned how the system trains and certifies. You became, a DO, top of the game. And many doctors that go beyond, call it anti-aging, call it longevity, call it regenerative, functional, often, in especially 10, 15 years ago, were ostracized for going and doing the voodoo medicine or bioidentical hormones, or there's no evidence in that. But now that longevity is becoming the standard of care. It's the everyday conversation post-COVID. And then again, where you and I connected is working through your regenerative practice, but somewhere around 2020, getting into what I would call the woo space, the energetic, the emotional, the spiritual, mind, body, spirit medicine. And there's certain ones that are going either to South America or adding ketamine into the clinic. There's multiple different ways. There's certain states where this is becoming the norms, but you've obviously brought yourself to that path for your own internal journey. Let's talk about that. Like, what brought you or drew you to that? Was it, hearing about it, seeing the science, seeing the documentaries, just felt a natural call to natural medicines? What was the inspiration of understanding something that people are now curious enough about, but are wanting to know the research and who's done it? And other like-minded doctors like you are like, wow, if you're seeing a place for this, maybe somebody just listening, like, they may have gone through that same process. Is this right? Is it natural? What's the medical entry point into this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, my initial intro to it, I'm a curious person. I jump into things. I don't need research, good or bad. I don't need to read all the double-blind studies. When I put my mind to something, I do it. And so my friend brings a medicine man to Colorado. So my friend went to Mexico. He did something called Bufo or 5-MeO DMT. And he was like, it changed my life. And honestly, like, our friend group made fun of him. And it's a 15-minute journey is what it's called. And we were like, whatever, your life can't change in 15 minutes. We didn't believe him. And, people call it licking the toad or whatever. That's not what happens. But a few years after he had this transformation, I mean, a few things happened during that time is more people I knew started trying psychedelics, and I would hear patients say like, oh, I did psilocybin and it changed my life. And again, the skeptic and the physician in me was like, I want to see the science, but I don't believe you. I think you, like, my internal dialogue was like, oh, you're just doing drugs and saying it changed your life. Like, I honestly didn't believe them, but I didn't need to read studies for me to do it. I just didn't believe people at first, because obviously you didn't learn it in medical school, and I didn't understand how that could happen. It doesn't make sense that if you've had this certain physiology, you can go do a 15-minute thing or a 5-hour thing, and that it changes, it changes your, like, you never had depression again, or, it changed your PTSD completely or anxiety. So I didn't believe people at first. I was a skeptic, but I decided to try it because my friend brought this medicine man and he had already done it. And so that was the only thing I needed. He did it, he tried it with this person, and he's alive, right? I didn't need to read studies on it. So he brought this medicine man to Colorado. And actually, my husband did it first, 6 months before me, and couldn't, didn't really talk about it. I mean, other than he said it was amazing, you need to try it. And so the medicine man came back 6 months later, and my husband was like, you should try it. And my thought process was, I can do anything for 15 minutes. Sure, I'll try it. And at the time, I was less than a year into owning my own business. My husband was a stay-at-home dad. It's a lot of pressure. And so I was meditating on show me the way in my business, and I didn't read anything about this medicine. I didn't read anything about this man. I just was trusting the process. But I was meditating in the morning. I would wake up for 5 minutes a day and just show me the way in my business. Like, that's what I want to know. And COVID hadn't hit yet, but it hit during that time. But anyways, a lot of pressure, right? Like, stay-at-home dad, like a business that was brand new business. And so I just wanted help. And so that's what I was meditating on. I went and I did this medicine, and I did 2 sits, meaning 2 days in a row, and it changed my life. And the way it changed my life is a little hard to describe, but during my second journey, where you're completely outside of your body, and you like, it feels like 5 seconds and 5 days all at once. I mean, the information you get and acquire, and it's all kind of acquired via just osmosis, it happens so quick, and we can go into the science of that. But during that journey for me, I felt like one with the universe, and I just understood so much of the things that happen in the universe, and I understood anxiety. And there was a brief second of, like, in my journey, like a line of, like, there's no need to be afraid or anxious, whatever, not a big part of my journey. Then I was coming to, like, I literally saw my right brain was like, that was so beautiful, this is amazing, I want to feel this way forever. And my left brain was like, but what neurochemically just happened? And I was like watching, like, the two sides of my brain, like my left brain coming back online and wanting to know all the science behind it, my right brain kind of wanting to stay in that, like, zone. And so anyhow, I went back to kind of like my normal life. But over the course of the next 2 months, energetically, I was a completely different person. And that's the only way I can describe it, is like, I didn't know, and I don't suffer from anxiety, but I think high performers and type A, right? Like, we have this fear of failure and we need to do and go, go, go. And I didn't know that I had, like, fear driving me until it was gone. Like, nothing bothered me. I would go back to running my business, but it was from a completely different energy. It was just this way of, like, it's going to be okay. There's just inner knowing that it's fine. And I don't have to come at it from this hustle. And it's not like I stopped hustling, but the energy behind what I was doing was completely different for 2 months after that 15-minute experience. And that was my initiation into the understanding of how powerful these medicines are. And it's not about that 15 minutes, but it's rewiring your entire system. And so that's the way it changed my life. I mean, even for 2 months after that experience, I mean, I had toddlers and babies at the time, and, like, nothing bothered me. I mean, no joke, I didn't yell at my kids. I didn't drink coffee. I didn't drink alcohol. Like, I didn't need anything else. And so that was the biggest change for me, is the recognition and just inherent understanding of how deep these medicines can change your life. And then on the outside changed more for me was, I don't think it was that journey, but then I was like, I need to know more. I need to understand more. And so I went off and I've done a bunch of journeys with different medicines since then. But in a short amount of time after that, when I was kind of seeking, I found other physicians who were doing it in the space, doing these journeys. So knowing that physicians had already done it before me. And at one point, it was in my system of, you have to do this. You have to offer this to your patients. And it was as powerful, that inner knowing of, you have to offer it to your patients, as the day I knew I wanted to be a doctor. And I honestly struggled with it for a year, because, it was like, I didn't go into medicine I was still, like, had this, like, oh, it's drugs, like, a little bit. So I didn't go into medicine to give people, to do psychedelic journeys, to give patients, like, this is not why I became a doctor. I do sports medicine. I had all this internal dialogue with it, but it was in every cell of my body. Like, you will offer this to your patients. And then also over time, even more, the recognition of, this is root cause medicine, like, more than, functional medicine and longevity medicine are wonderful, and I practice them, and they are root cause medicine, but psychedelics take it to a whole new level. And so when I had that download of how deeply these medicines heal and long lasting change. And with this, like, you have to offer it to your patients. Again, it was like a year journey, but then I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. Ketamine's legal. I'm trained in ketamine as a PM&R doc for pain. And so then, I mean, I took a course for psychedelics and just put it out into the universe, like, okay, I'm going to start offering it. And I kid you not, within less than a month of me just mentally saying, like, okay, I'm comfortable, I'm ready, I had at least 3 or 4 patients kind of randomly. I didn't email anybody, just asked me, can you help me in psychedelics or ketamine therapy? And so my answer was yes. And so it was just the evolution of, yeah, me coming into this space.
Well, it's pretty wild. And, we have a lot of history and background. And yeah, I can say very similarly about my toad experience. It was, even though I had some other medicines prior to that, it was a life-changing 15 minutes for me. And I've since done that twice, amongst other medicines, just like you said, and still now bring doctors to South America. There's legal places in the United States, Colorado being one of them, Oregon being ones for different medicines. And I'm excited for the future of it. So I
Yeah.
believe, more doctors like you that have gone through it, been through it, will help trust versus just the weekend people or the undergrounds or people that don't have the medical background. So I'm very hopeful when doctors get into the space and have not just are prescribing, but have gone through the transformation, understand like what happens afterwards, how we show up in our families differently. Because I see a lot of doctors prescribing ketamine or offering it, but they haven't gone through the personal experience. They don't know
I
the
think it's a
before, the
tragedy. I
after,
think it's
and
not the
everything
same as like
else.
prescribing thyroid medicine. I don't need to try thyroid medicine to know you're hypothyroid and give you the medicine. I mean, but as we know in life, I mean, anything that we've experienced, we do bring to the practice of medicine or anything we do, right? So our entire history, we do bring to it. So it's like a pediatrician being a pediatrician before they have kids. For sure, they know all the science and whatever, but they don't know what it's like to be a mom. So, I mean, I know this because I thought I was going to go into pediatrics for a while. I did a lot of rotations and I had a lot of opinions about parents as a doctor until I became a mom. And not that my opinions were wrong, they just changed, or I had a greater appreciation for it. And so, but I really think in psychedelics, it's a tragedy and a disservice if you haven't sat with your own medicines and you're offering these, because again, unlike thyroid, it's an ineffable experience, and the transformation and the information you gain and the way in which you gain it is not something that happens at all in this realm. And I think westernizing psychedelics is not the way to help patients in the transformation, because I don't think Western medicine has figured it out. And I would also even jump to say a lot of what we're doing in longevity medicine, by practicing longevity medicine in the way we practice traditional medicine, like just because we're talking about diet and exercise and genetics and, recommending supplements, I think that's also not the right way to really help people on a transformation. So we go from being like Western medicine trained docs, whatever the path is, but let's say functional medicine docs or longevity docs or psychedelic medicine. I think the whole practice of medicine has to change in the way in which we interact with our patients, in the way in which we view medicine. Because if we're transposing one system of care to just like prescribing different things, I don't really think it works personally.
I agree. And that's where, I want to go to the evolution. I think why you were attracted to what we were building at Rejuve and what I've done is the true North Star was how do we do what we're doing, be in community, and learn to improve what we're doing. So the moral of the story is we didn't just do medical fitness or regenerative therapy. What made the best outcome for
Yes.
regenerative therapies? No different than what you're saying. You learned, hey, I even went to different retreats. I've seen other people put it in their practices. What is missing? And I think that created your catalyst for change. Quintessential says just like, okay, if somebody does one of these experiences, if somebody does a regenerative therapy, if somebody does a psychedelic journey, what is going to enhance that outcome? And I saw gaps and still see gaps. And you kind of solved like, hey, your body goes through a certain process. There's an upswing, a downswing in either one of these. And how do we prepare both prior to one of these things and post one of these things? So let's talk about the birthing of your catalyst of change of quintessentials to make sure people have the best potential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients pre and post both regenerative and psychedelic care.
Sure. So just so we're not confusing people, I have a medical practice called Core Regenerative Medicine. That's a longevity regenerative practice in Golden, Colorado. Through that practice in doing psychedelics, I often kind of pre-op patients or clear patients for psychedelic journeys for therapists to make sure they're cardiovascularly safe or get them on medications that might interact or whatever else the patient needs. And during that process, because I work in longevity, many therapists would ask me, well, what supplements should they take to either make the journey better or prevent a crash? Sometimes you can have a physical energy crash and also an energetic crash after the experience. So I started researching how the different medicines that the different therapists were using, depending on what they were, whether it was psilocybin, MDMA, ketamine, affected our biochemistry and what needed to be replenished, but also what do we need to build on the front end, partially based on the medicines and partially based on my knowledge of longevity medicine. And so I started recommending supplements, but I was recommending hundreds of dollars of supplements for a single journey and getting a lot of questions from the patients directly about how to take them. Do I take them morning, night, whatever? And so I just thought this is a ton of money to recommend for a single journey, and I can't field all of these questions. Why don't I create cute little packs, like week-long packs? I actually wanted to make them 2 weeks, but I narrowed it down to 1 week that people start 3 days before, they take the day of, and they take 3 days after. Why don't I make it easy and more affordable for patients to get the vitamins they need that helps build up their cellular health, kind of like holds their system during the journey and then helps them recover afterwards. So I made these week-long packs for the therapist I was working with, and they became very popular very quickly. And so I formed a new company called Quintessential Journey for these supplements. And so I have 3 psychedelic supplement lines, one for ketamine, one for MDMA, and one for psilocybin right now, because those are the main journeys that people are doing in Colorado to help support people so that they can get through these journeys. Because part of it is on the psychedelic journeys, had this amazing transformation with their therapist, but then they felt so bad after they would never do it again. And I thought, well, that's a tragedy. You know, if you did something that impacted you so greatly, but you would never do it again because you felt bad. So that was also kind of the reason, and keeping people safe. Sometimes people can have specifically on MDMA, a mental crash. And so if therapists are worried about suicide or severe depression, and then they have a mental crash for a day or two afterwards, that's just dangerous, right? So keeping people safe and healthy was my goal. So I started Quintessential Journey to really facilitate health in patients, right? If they are going to have these major transformative events, you have to not only, a lot of people focus on intention setting and integration. So like before setting an intention, we're focusing on mindset and they're doing therapy before, and that is necessary and wonderful and beautiful. And then integration after, the same thing with therapy. But a lot of, especially therapists, because they're not trained in it, but also other people doing these journeys aren't focusing on like the body that's carrying the journey. And so if people aren't physically set up to do these medicines, they can crash. So I thought that's kind of, how Quintessential Journey came about. And then I also have a stem cell line for physicians who are doing stem cell procedures. And that was created because my colleagues in regenerative medicine, I've been in the space for a while, so people know me, and they found out what I was doing with psychedelics, and they said, that's amazing. Will you please create the same supplements for our stem cell procedures, because we want to optimize our patients before and after. And so again, I spent some time doing research about how we can optimize our cellular health, increase our stem cell quality and quantity before doing the procedures, optimize the environment we're putting the stem cells into. And then I created 30-day supplement packs specifically for regenerative medicine procedures that now many physicians use for 30 days before and 30 days after their stem cell procedures. And so that is under the umbrella of Quintessential Journey, but is actually its own business itself called Coregenics, which is neither here nor there. But that is how this whole thing developed. And now I have 3 businesses.
And I love it. It's 3 businesses stem from, personal experience, personal transformation, and seeing a gap in the market. And again, not having the right cellular health, the biochemistry down. It's how do you make these things safer, more effective, rebound properly. And that's, like you said, intention and integration that have been known for a while, but filling this gap, I thought was a genius idea, and highly recommend for everybody. I've gone to, plenty of my own journeys myself, and, I want to feel good as possible during, and definitely as good as possible after. We all go back to busy lives. If you're running a practice, you got your practice, your family, your business, your health. I think that's one of the common fears people have. If I go there, I'm going to lose my mind, my business, my everything. And it's just like, yeah, if you just go randomly, if you don't, vet your process, you'd probably still be all right. But
why not be proactive in terms of, how do we gauge the best experience before if we ever did a surgery, a regenerative therapy, or something of this nature to have all bases covered. Have you noticed a difference personally in the stacks or reported outcomes that people would or wouldn't typically have before having some of these essential packs?
100%. I mean, I had someone this morning. So I guess I actually have four lines. I do have a festival line in the psychedelic space that randomly had a follow-up with someone who was at a festival this weekend, and this was the first time she used them, and she's like, I never would have made it through the weekend of like camping and music without your vitamins, and I feel great and I could get back to work on Monday. So that was one person. I mean, with the MDMA line, I think I have solved the crash by 90 to 95 of the people. And the people who have still had crashes say it has been significantly less than crashes they've experienced in the past. With psilocybin, people, I mean, are saying they have enough energy afterwards or don't have the belly pain that they typically get or the nausea that they might get with some of the psilocybin. With ketamine, I've had patients because we used to do, in the studies, it's a series of six. So we would do a series of six. And now, so I've had patients with me kind of before Quintessential was created and after, and just had patients unsolicited say, oh my gosh, I didn't know I felt bad until I feel better. I didn't think I had any side effects when we used to do ketamine, but now I notice more energy. I used to get a headache. I'm trying to think what else, but kind of with the ketamine, it's been more subtle, but 100% of the people who've been on them were kind of like, I didn't know I felt bad until I feel better. With stem cells, I only have reports from my physicians that I sell the packs to. So I generally I'm selling them to regenerative medicine physicians, which include, I mean, even some just orthopedic surgeons are using them before their surgeries. And they are saying that they feel like their patients, mostly feel more well cared for because it's a more comprehensive approach to the procedure and that they're recovering faster. I feel like I've noticed people with less like recovering quicker or having less inflammation after their procedures. But I don't have like before quintessential and after quintessential on the stem cell front because typically people are doing one stem cell procedure and then they're better anyhow. The docs that I work with on the stem cell or it's called Ignite, that line, are really grateful because they say that their patients feel more cared for. It's actually easy. They don't have to recommend different supplements and have the conversations with patients about not wanting to pay extra for the supplements or which supplements to take. Literally, I mean, the packs are, you take these pills you take, it's 8 pills a day. You can take them whenever time of day you want. And like there's a powder pack with creatine and collagen. And so people are just kind of grateful that I've made it easy and they trust me. And again, I really am just trying to help optimize outcomes. I never intended to start another business, and I love having another business. I love the entrepreneurial side of business, but it's a lot. I wasn't looking for more work. But what I love the most is the feedback I get from the like physicians and the people that I'm helping, but just easing the burden of how they can improve their patient care and their patient experience.
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I've seen what you're touching on here, if you're a practitioner listening, you can have an a la carte menu, like most practices that I've worked with in integrative care do have that. They have the red light, they have the stem cells, the PRP, the supplements. And again, when you give them 10 bottles of supplements or six, that brings down compliance. It increases the complexity. It makes it easier versus having a pill pack or a certain amount of days pre or post that improves the experience. You could, even with the quintessentials have that, and some of the more advanced practices that I work with have the bundle all in one. So if somebody comes to you, they just want the best. So if you're selling and want to be preeminent in regenerative medicine, sell the stem cell and the PRP follow-up or the inflammation reduction, whether you believe in exosomes, sell the red light with it or the pill pack. So you have this shockwave, whatever you believe in that gets the best outcome. Give that whole protocol. And somebody doesn't want the best, you have this menu of amazing things. So to your point, if I'm adding quintessentials, I'm selling regen with that already built in it. So I don't have to be like,
Correct.
yes, and yes, and yes, and. And if you do yes, and that's cool too. But it's more of how do you bundle transformation and make this experience amazing for people. So that would be my 2 cents.
Yeah, agreed. It's a easy and seamless process to implement into if you have packages. And if you don't have packages, like you said, you could it still is easier than saying, here's the 10 different supplements I want you to take. It's just take this supplement pack for 30 days before and for 30 days after. Same with, again, like the psychedelic line. I mean, I have a few retreat centers that I work with, or, and they love having our packs because it helps their people feel more held, right? Like they're not just like, oh, we're going to do one thing. It's like, we have taken into consideration so many important parts of your being because we want you to have the best experience. And so overall, I mean, honestly, I've gotten, I think, nothing at this point. It's still a baby business, but nothing but positive feedback.
It's a total experience when you do it that way. And
Yeah.
I want to go back to something because you've been very open and transparent. And I know how you've transformed, how I've transformed. Obviously, you've felt called to support others in this area, but I want to go back to somebody who's maybe not as open-spirited and have heard these terms. I feel two different ways. I like bringing groups together where they're doctors or medical founders together because it's not easy to find a group of, you can maybe find a medical mastermind with other people that are thinking in business, but to go in a group or a container with other like-minded people, the power of that, or meaning like, hey, I didn't want anybody to see my stuff. I've always been like open to trying different things, but not open sharing my problems, emotions, feelings with other people. I kept protection there. So was it the one-on-one that allowed you to feel safer, go a little bit deeper? Have you liked the groups and the communities that were called it a mix mash versus just other healthcare entrepreneurs together? Kind of your experience of what each of them held for your experience as you studied and participated in medicine.
Yeah, I will tell you, I'll first start with kind of, I mean, so I'll tell you about my experience in a second. But since on this journey, I've hosted retreats for non-medical and medical professionals, but have hosted and co-hosted with other coaches. So specifically like physicians opening their own businesses and then specifically adding psychedelics to that. So I have worked with a coach who is their main business coach, and then I will take them on a journey and we do a business mastermind on medicine, which is amazing. And physicians tend to love that because we like to be with other physicians and find value in people who have our similar lived experience. And I have found value in that as well. And I love hosting a group of physicians in that way. However, I have sat in medicine masterminds and non-medicine masterminds, and I find different but equal value actually in maybe having both, and sitting with other people who are not physicians, because in for business mastermind specifically, because they have just different ideas. We've been so pushed into this narrow like funnel of how we see the world and how we view business and what it means. And when you're able to surround yourself sometimes by business owners in an intentional way, like in ceremony, they have ideas that are just not in our sphere or our realm at all. And it's a really beautiful place to be. So in addressing the like, is it, physicians or non-physicians? I mean, there is value in both because then, nobody else has had as a whole our own lived experience, but our lived experience as physicians, which is very intense. And there is camaraderie in that. And it is a world that nobody can understand until you've gone through medical school and residency. It just is its own thing personally. And so I say that because I see physicians who come to me all the time and they only want to sit with other physicians. And I've facilitated that, but I don't think it's the only way. And I would say, nor do I think it's the best way. I don't think it's the worst way. It's even, you're going to have a different experience every time you do it. Personally, I've sat one-on-one and in groups, mostly in groups, because that's how these journeys are done. And there's so much anxiety by mainly physicians, but a lot of people going into that about, right, I don't want to be open and I don't want to be vulnerable and in front of others and all of this stuff. But when you're on these journeys, you're totally in your own space. You are laying down with your eyes closed usually, and you are having your own experience and you mostly don't notice other people. And then there is integration where you talk afterwards, but you share as much or as little as you want, but you are so connected to those people in the room with you. So there's more anxiety going into it about sharing the space with other people than actually what happens in the room. And what happens in the room is powerful, and everybody's energy in the room does relate to your experience as well. And so I guess there's more anxiety about being in a room with people and being vulnerable and emotional, but everybody is on their own journey in their own world and not paying attention to you and what you're doing is kind of the long and the short of it. But I've sat one-on-one with someone, and that was a really beautiful experience. Part of my journey on that was personally than just having one person with eyes on me the whole time. I mean, I felt safe that way, but it was like a lot. Like, do I need to ask them questions, be there for them, or do I want that much attention even, right? So I've had that where I've had a one-on-one journey, and then it just felt like a lot of attention on me the whole time. So I would say the one-on-one experience is beautiful. In a business mastermind setting, I've had the one-on-one experience, and that was great. And a business mastermind in a group was great. It's just different experiences. But I would say if you're worried about the group, that anxiety is so much more than it needs to be and is unnecessary because everybody is there doing the same thing.
Yeah. I feel like if somebody's new and trying to be connected and looking for other friends that can go a layer deeper or two with, then doing it in a small group is powerful. And I've seen people that have some real things going on in life, whether it's addictions, traumas, they just felt a little bit safer to go deeper with a guide in a medicine maestro or person or whatever one wants to call it. And I've done both too. And so I won't say again, just like you said, right or wrong. It just knows that all options are available that best support you and where you're at in your journey. If you're curious by hearing this show or reaching out, thing that I love about you, Dr. Quinn, is I think the Western world is not ready for the deep experiences, but doctors just like you that know how to create a safe environment, know how to care for people beyond the space with their whole health continuity. And again, being open that you've experienced it. You know, there's highs and lows, just not in your cells, but what's going on in your mind and how do you bring it back to your safety. And that's part of that embodied piece. Like every decision you make when you have carry the responsibility that you carry is important. So you don't want to make that decision just like that. You want somebody to navigate that understands the medicine, who's gone through it and is living, a somewhat similar life, because your family matters, your practice matters, your patients matter. It's showing up with knowing all of this. And when you do all of that, I believe it can be one of the most transformational opportunities to, just like you said, get out of just using one half of the brain and merging these two. It's not that one is bad. It's just you open up to so many more possibilities of creativity, peace, seeing the beauty in everything versus system, strategy, logic, hard programmed, hardware type thinking that a lot of us can fall into very easily based on our backgrounds.
Totally. I mean, that's our training in Western medicine. That's our training in Western society, even if you're not in medicine, and we value like work and the thinking mind. And there's so much value in that, but there's actually so much value too in the intuitive body and, the intuitive being that we're trained out of it.
Yeah. So tell me, what you see in the future of this unfolding. States are getting legal. You're obviously putting systems and infrastructure and being a part of the solution. And, that's what I'm doing too. And I don't know where it's going to unfold, but can you give me a vision of 3 to 5 years with AI, longevity, psychedelics, where things are going? And I love that you said at the beginning too, this isn't just about doing it the old way differently. It's like maybe the whole system has to adjust. It is more quality over quantity, more, community over isolation. What are you seeing for the picture of health that it's going to best support humanity?
Well, I guess I know that that's what I want, right? I do think it's community over isolation. I do think it's having a deeper understanding and a deeper patience for other humans. I think for a long time, I don't know that it's going that way, but I do think these medicines and in general, ideally entrepreneurship, even in of itself, helps you open your mind a little bit more and just have this understanding that we're not all on the same journey and on the same journey at the same time. So while we're on this planet at the same time, people, I don't know, when people get mad at me in my business, which fortunately doesn't happen a lot, but as much as possible, I don't take it so personally because I'm able to see like this is about them. Like there's something else going in their life that they're upset about my prices or they're upset that I'm not giving them what they want. And so I don't work in the political realm of psychedelics. I think that as more physicians become aware of longevity medicine, more physicians are becoming, like you said, 16 years ago when I started in longevity medicine, I would tell other docs what I'm doing. Or, I would get so much bad mail or people just reaming me like physicians, like you're a quack, you're this. And that was so hard to deal with. I was like, I went to medical school like everyone else. And now I actually spend more time and money than ever going to conferences, educating myself about more and more things it was hard, and has been a journey for me to, even before I was going to open my practice, like get over the fact that other docs were going to think I was a quack. Like I was like, I'm going to put myself out there and other docs are going to think I'm a quack. And that took me years to like work through that mindset of just being okay with like, this is who I am. And I think I'm helping more people practicing medicine in this way than I did when I was constricted in the Western medicine world and just like giving people pills and sticking needles in their spines, right? Like I truly think I'm making a difference in the world that I was meant to make. But I had to go through that journey personally. So I think as more and more physicians are aware of longevity and functional medicine and regenerative medicine and psychedelics, hopefully they can lean into being more open-minded in this understanding that we were brainwashed. I'm not saying it was bad, but we were taught a certain way. We were taught to think this way. We were taught to prescribe medicines. We were taught to send people for imaging. I still do all those things. I'm not anti, but I do them having a lot more tools in my pocket. So I think as more physicians go into medicine because we want to heal people and we want to change the world in that way. We were taught to be competitive, and we were taught that, only our thinking is the right way and everyone else is doing it wrong. But I think as more and more physicians can understand these medicines, they're going to have their own but parallel but similar journey in terms of like, oh, I didn't know everything. Oh my gosh, there's so much more to know. Oh my gosh, there's so many more ways we can heal. In terms of psychedelics, I'm, like in Colorado, psilocybin is legal, and, you can have a healing center and you can be a facilitator. And that's great. And with everything else, like I'm wary of psychedelics becoming westernized, where I need a pill to fix me. So I'm going to take psilocybin, or I'm going to take ketamine. I mean, already ketamine, which is a medication, but ketamine clinics are opening, and right, the physician or whoever will go in there and tell someone like, okay, I'm giving you an IV, start an IV, leave the room, never have like a meaningful exchange with the patient. And then, I mean, I've seen this happen, or in a ketamine clinic down the street, a patient is like, well, I didn't really notice an effect or didn't have a benefit, or I still am depressed. And the physician being like, well, that means you just didn't respond to the medication, so it's not for you, move on. As opposed to like this conversation of the medicine isn't going to fix you. You're going to sit with the medicine and it's going to open the door for transformation, but you still need to like do the work and make the change, right?
Walk through the door.
And walk through the door. And so I think that's still what we're missing. I mean, in longevity medicine, we're missing in psychedelics. And so as psychedelics become more open, I love it, because I love that people have more access and that more people can be transformed or healed. But the duality of life, unfortunately, I think more people, it's going to open the door for more medical harm.
Yeah. And I love that you said that, Dr. Quinn. It comes down to, you're talking about duality and polarities. You're taught compete, control, fear, and you're also saying openness, understanding, patience, possibility. There are two other perspectives, right? Yeah. One's not right or wrong. It's somewhere in the middle. Go open, but then again, these tools are great, but then you got to do your part. Both sides of the coin, responsibility, foundational change, whether we're talking regenerative or family practice. We all know less stress, better sleep, moving each day, eating better is a catalyst to any outcome in healthcare that we could muster up or dream of. That's how do we create the community, the space, the understanding that people got addictions. People don't know what they don't know. How do we create that inside of these? And it comes down to, if you're fighting all the time, you're closed. You're thinking right or wrong versus openness, studying, inclusiveness. How do we try other ways? Because what we've done as a society is not that effective statistically overall right now. The new model is, how do we be more effective? Whether we think our methodology or protocol is better, as a society, we are not great statistically. So that should lead to openness, to consideration. Same thing as the mirror to you. Are you at peace? Are you happy? Are you in a lot of relationships? Do you feel good in your body? You feel good in, like you mentioned in the beginning, anxiety versus peace, calmer versus reactive. If not, your strategy is not that effective. Be open, potentially courageous. Maybe you don't got to go to the jungle in the Amazon, but have a conversation. Listen to this show without skepticism. Dive down a couple studies and just stay open, because you deserve it. Your family deserves it. Our country deserves it. The world deserves steps in a direction that support all of humanity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, psychedelics aren't for everyone. They aren't the way for everyone. There are, there is guided meditation, there is meditation, there is breath work, there is somatic therapy. I mean, there's internal family systems. There's so many ways to achieve a similar result. But I think staying open and doing the work and, just knowing that, well, we all have excuses and we all have stories, but you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to be stuck in your career. You don't have to be stuck in your situation. You don't have to be stuck, I don't know, in your marriage. You don't have to, what their excuses. We tell ourselves, I mean, when I opened my business 7.5 years ago, my husband was a stay-at-home dad. And the conversation I was like, I want to open my own business. I'm ready. And he was nothing but supportive, thank goodness. But it was like, we are going to have no income for a while, like zero. Right. And I mean, in coaching other physicians are like, oh, but I need these things. I want to make money. I need these things. And that's fine. That's a story you're telling yourself. Do I drive a Ferrari? No. But I knew ish what I was getting into. Like I was going to take a huge pay cut. My husband was a stay-at-home dad and we were going to figure it out. And we have figured it out. But I could have stayed in the story, and I hear it all the time of, I need to make this much money. I need to do this. And that's there. It's not a need, it's a want and it's a desire. And that is fine. It's just recognizing kind of the verbiage and how you're viewing your life, because you don't have to, and like I've seen you grow and change so much. Like we get to show up in a way that we want. We get to show up with less fear and less anxiety and more aligned and truly like happy and truly coming at our business or our lives or our careers from a place of love and joy and at least contentedness. It doesn't have to be so much suffering. That is sometimes a lot of the time a choice. We just don't think it is.
That is truth. One of my favorite lines is, truth collapses all timelines. So yes, you may want those things, but at the end of the day, what is your soul? What is your mission? What is your purpose? Knowing clearly what that is you want. And as you said, not staying stuck. Taking aligned actions, listen to the stories you're telling yourself. That's how you're going to stay stuck at a level. Reoccurring thoughts, reoccurring beliefs, reoccurring patterns. And sometimes that's why I love about these spaces of people who are truly open and growing, is we know it's easier to see other people's stuff than our own. For a friend or a supportive one to hear our language and story and bring that unconscious thought language to light, not with judgment, but to like, hey, do you want to do something different about this? And you've done it and you're doing it. Some sirens going by and saying yes. Is my last question is, you're doing it right now. How do people reach out to you at your practice to potentially come see how you've incorporated a longevity model of transformation with regenerative therapies and all of the above, as well as your quintessentials for those that are looking for pre-filled, pre-made solutions to enhancing either journeys or regenerative therapies?
Yeah, so right now for Quintessential, you can go to quintessentialjourney.com. It's quintessential with 2 N's. That's for the psychedelic line. Because the business is splitting, it's going to be Coregenics, but I don't have a website for the regenerative stuff. So you can still go through Quintessential, but just depending on when people hear this podcast, just know that the regenerative medicine line won't be a part of that for much longer. Either way, you're reaching me though. So if you email support@quintessentialjourney.com. It's me directly. Again, it's quintessential with 2 N's. So that's for the supplements. People can become affiliates, meaning they sign up online and they can make recommendations for patients or other people to buy them and make a percent. My practice is Core with a K, Core Regenerative Medicine. Again, I would say just reach out through the website. We can chat if you're, looking to be a patient or to get support in terms of building your own practice or how do I do it? I mean, I love helping physicians, live a life that they're proud of and that they love. So we can chat.
Check out both of those links below and in the show notes. And for a leader or somebody in healthcare, a doctor, somebody listening who recognizes they need some more support. They're stuck in their thinking, in their practice growth. What do you think is the best next support? And what would you like every healthcare listener or leader listening to remember today?
I think just remember that you don't have to do it alone. Get the help you need, whether it's a business coach or sometimes it's a therapist, and you don't have to be stuck. You might be stuck right now, but there are steps you can take, even baby steps every day, to have a medical practice or a business or even just work at the hospital, but do it in a way that aligns with your values and with your mission in life. And so reach out, get support from a coach, reach out to other peers, find entrepreneurial groups. There's a ton of them once you start looking. email me. I'm happy to be a resource and take it from there. Once you start looking and once you start the process, like you'll be surprised at the domino effect that it has in your life.
Thank you. One last popcorn question. What belief or action or founding principle has helped you continue to navigate from, conventional to the model you want, from anxiety driven to, finding peace? Is there a belief and action that or a mantra that you use that continues to help you evolve?
For me, it's the belief that it's gonna work out, that like as long as I keep making steps and treating people well and according to my value system and integrity, that my businesses are going to be successful, my patients are going to be successful, the other clients that I help are going to be successful. And the recognition, because I am human, I'm not above anyone or anything, but the recognition that everybody is on this roller coaster of life. So there's going to be some hard days, there's going to be some hard months, and it just is. It doesn't, I no longer go to this place of this is my life, I'm not good enough. And it's recognizing the mindset and like that, how you can spiral. And since this would be like positive psychology, if you're looking at doing that work on your own or reading books, it's just recognizing that you do have the ability to change your mind. And so when you can recognize the stories you're telling yourself or the spirals that you get in and cut them off sooner, it really helps just like not go there.
I love that. So, anybody listen, this is Dr. Jordana Quinn, truly a friend, somebody practicing and on the journey herself, as you heard, and the belief of how do you flip the mind to it's working out for you? How do you see something instead of a default, a negative way of viewing it? How do you flip and see the positive and for your potential and growth and everything? And to me, call it a championship mindset, a growth mindset. Your mindsets, your thoughts, and your actions pave the way to transformation. So thank you for doing the work yourself, for you, for your patients, for my family, for the world. It's truly leaders like you that I'm excited to have on the show, Dr. Quinn, an inspiration to many. And I hope all of you listening go check out the websites, consider these packages, consider going and seeing her, as I believe, you need to consider working with people that are doing the work.
Yep, agreed. Thank you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's been a joy.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Doctors of Change. If this conversation moved you, inspired you, or expanded of what you believe is possible, share it with another doctor or a leader who's ready to rise. Together, we amplify this movement, and together we transform healthcare, community, and the future of all humanity. Until next time, heal yourself, lead with love, and keep becoming the doctor of change you were born to be.